Geckos.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the vlog. My name is Barczyk, and this is a leopard gecko. And I hope the start of your day is absolutely incredible. Today is going to be a little departure from the normal vlog. It will not be a day in the life because you guys have been opining for a leopard gecko vlog. So what I am going to do today is I'm just going to show you a bunch of leopard geckos. So if you happen to hate leopard geckos, now is the time you probably want to click off and go watch some cute cat videos. If you are still around and you want to watch some geckos, I am going to do my best to wow you with my knowledge and the beauty of these animals, which, by the way, the knowledge will come from Jessica, not me, but I'm going to make it sound like it comes from me if you guys don't mind. Let's go ahead and set all our problems aside for the next 12 or 15 minutes and just enjoy some beautiful leopard geckos. Why don't you go down in the comments and tell me how your day is starting, and while you're down there, hit that like button for me. Why don't we go ahead and get this day started? If you want one of my favorite leopard geckos. I've showed you this guy before. This is actually a super snow, white and yellow, possible het eclipse. And again, the Max Snow is a co-dominant. This would be the super version of the Max Snow, and then the white and yellow just really makes that animal look completely different. And I just love the fact that it has that blue on top of its eyes. We have a lot of geckos to show, so let's keep moving. So we kind of go from a smaller, only few-month-old gecko, like the one I just showed you, to this beastie right here. This happens to be a patty stripe, and it's about 90 to 95 grams. I mean, look at this monster right here. And they come out with really interesting patterns, and I'll be honest with you, some of the patty stripe stuff is ridiculously cool, but again, it is linked to the eclipse gene. And then there's this little monkey right here, which is a raptor. This is actually a super hypo tangerine tremper eclipse. Just look at that. It's really cool because a lot of times the raptors don't have as orange of a tail, but look at how orange that one's tail is. That thing is pretty awesome. This is a project that I absolutely love. This is actually just a Max Snow, but it's what we call the dark line. So we've been working with this Max Snow line that is basically just making them really dark and almost sooty looking. It's really cool. Now there's a whole bunch of kind of like black pearls and a whole bunch of different black lines. This isn't related to that stuff, but nevertheless, it is super cool. This is such a gorgeous little monkey right here. This is actually a tangerine enigma. Now the enigma gene is actually like an incomplete dominant type gene, but problem is there's some neurological issues, which basically just means when they get stressed or stuff like that, they'll sometimes wobble around and even run in circles. So we don't breed a whole lot of these guys. We have a very small group and we kind of work with stuff, and we're trying to get the ones that are the least neurological. You can see this one's actually really good, but just look at how gorgeous the tangerine and the enigma mix together. And of course, the tangerine is a polygenic trait, which just basically means that you continue to breed the prettiest tangerine to the prettiest tangerine, and every generation it gets better and better and better. Guys, I'm actually freaked out by this one. I didn't even know that we had these. Woohoo! It's kind of a crazy one too. This is actually a Bell Albino Super Snow. And again, I didn't even know we were working with these, so Jessica kind of brought it to me and I was like, oh my gosh, that thing is absolutely incredible. And again, there's 3 lines of albinos and none of them are compatible with one another, but the Bell line is certainly my favorite, and this thing is ridiculous. I love this. There's no way we're selling this. This is a keeper. Alright, so this one right here would be a Sunglow Tremper white and yellow het marble eye. So that has a lot going on. The Sunglow is actually just a hypo albino. Of course, this is the Tremper albino. The het marble eye is kind of another pigmentation, kind of like the eclipse, but a little bit different. They aren't compatible with one another, and of course that white and yellow just makes this thing outrageous. So there's a few types of snow leopard geckos, and the snow leopard geckos are basically lacking the yellow pigment. That's why they call them snows. This happens to be what they would call a line-bred snow, which is not a co-dominant mutation like the Max Snow. What it is line-bred like the tangerine. So each generation you're breeding less and less yellow into it, and it just has an overall different look. And this one, of course, has that wicked cool pattern down his back too. Okay, so I showed you the Tremper tangerine white and yellow. This happens to be just a tangerine white and yellow. You can certainly see how that white and yellow influence really makes a unusual looking animal when it's mixed with the tangerine. I mean, it's just something about the tangerine and the white and yellow together make a really cool kind of orangey pattern. And of course, when you mixed it with the Tremper, that was really cool. But on its own, just a tangerine white and yellow is still spectacular. This little monkey right here, who's a little hyper little bugger, is actually a Max Max Snow Hypotremper white and yellow het eclipse. And you can kind of see that the eye pigment's a little bit wacky as well, so it might even be an eclipse animal, but you mix all those genes together and you have a really cool animal. And this one, again, doesn't want to just sit still. It always wants to keep running. Holy moly, this thing is crazy nice. Take a look at this. So there's something that's called basically like a bold stripe, right? And that's these crazy bold stripe patterns. You won't see one much better than this, I gotta tell you. And that is a polygenic trait, much like the tangerine and other things that we've been talking about. So it's line bred. You get a little bit of striping and then you breed it to something else that has a little striping, and you keep breeding, and the more and more and more striping comes out each generation, and it takes time. Now the good news is that leopard geckos are really prolific and they breed very young, under a year of age, so you can raise stuff up pretty quick and work projects like this and get 4, 5, 6 generations within a handful of years, whereas with a lot of snakes and other things, it may take you 10 or 12 years to get to the same part. But this thing is definitely not just a bold snow. I'm not really sure what it is. Jessica said that maybe it was like a hyperxanthic, which is understandable because there's tons of extra yellow. The xanthic would be xanthophores, which is the yellow pigment, but wow, that thing is crazy. Let's take a quick break from your regular scheduled gecko updates or whatever and show you kind of how we keep leopard geckos. Now again, if you're keeping a leopard gecko as a pet, you can keep it in a 10-gallon aquarium, whatever it is. I would stay away from sand because sand isn't good for leopard geckos. You can use any kind of substrate, paper, or whatever it might be, but the fact is you definitely want to have a moist spot in it if you're keeping it in a big tank. In this case, we have a relatively high humidity place here with the heat tapes on the back and the cool side this way, and as they get bigger, we do move them into a tub that has a moist, like Reptile Prime bedding in the bottom of a shoebox so that they can keep that humidity up. But we want to make sure that they have a hide box just like this. We just use these styrofoam containers that are actually used for packing meat, and we just cut them in half, and it works perfectly for a little hide box. We use just paper towel on the bottom. We keep mealworms in there all the time. They always will have fresh mealworms in 7 days a week. Sometimes we'll offer crickets, but oftentimes that's their staple diet. Now we do dust the mealworms with both calcium and vitamin powder so that they have everything they have. There's something that's called NBD, which is metabolic bone disease. If they don't have enough calcium and vitamins, they can have problems with their bones, which is really bad. And then we put a little water bowl in there, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know if the water is necessary because I've never really even seen one drinking, but we keep it in there for that. So that's one of the things that makes leopard geckos absolutely incredible, is the ease of care. So again, when you have that 10-gallon aquarium, you have the little moist hide box, you have your food, you have a heat lamp that you want to keep at about 90, 95 degrees, and the cool side down to about 78 to 82 degrees, and that's it. You keep the mealworms in there, you feed them crickets if you want, you don't have to as long as they're eating the mealworm. You dust the food, and you have a healthy, happy animal. One gecko in a 10-gallon aquarium might need to be cleaned every 3 or 4 weeks. They're kind of like cats. They will always poop in the same spot. So what you'll see is the rest of the cage is really clean, but there's always like a little bit of poop, and they always do in the same spot. So they're like the little kitties of the reptile world. I thought this was a really cool animal here. This is actually a snow white and yellow. It's the Max Snow and the white and yellow mix. But what I thought was really interesting was that paradoxing. You see how it's mainly a gray animal, but then it has like yellow blotching on it. And that's what they call paradoxing. Now the interesting thing about paradoxing is it's not really genetic. You can't really breed for it, but white and yellow seem to have a higher amount of paradoxing for some reason, but it doesn't breed true. So it's not like a pied ball python or anything like that. It's just a random occurrence. But when it does happen, it's pretty badass. Back to the bell albinos. Again, there's 3 types of albinos. There's the bell albino, there's the Tremper albino, and then there's what they call a Vegas albino or a rainwater albino. The Vegas and rainwater are basically the same because rainwater is from Vegas, if that makes any sense. Regardless, they are not compatible, but to me, the bells are kind of the prettiest. And this is one of my favorite morphs of the bell. Of course, this would be a bold bell, which is the bell albino and that bold stripe. And this would be a Sunglow Bell white and yellow. The Sunglow is just a hypo albino, whether it's in the Tremper line, the Bell line, or the Vegas line, and of course then a white and yellow mix. The one thing I find interesting with the bells in particular is all the albinos seem to have more sensitive eyes, so a lot of times they'll squint their eyes in the light like this, but the bells seem to have the kind of most red eyes, and they seem to have the most problem when it comes to light, so they really like to hide in their boxes where there's not a lot of light. And the last bell that I'll show you right now is something that they would call a jungle bell. Bell. Not Jingle Bell, Jungle Bell. And that basically is the jungle pattern, which is one of the first mutations ever in leopard geckos. They used to just call them jungle leopard geckos. And the jungles actually led to the patty stripes that ultimately led to the eclipse and all kinds of other stuff. But early on, this was the first polygenic trait, which just is a weird pattern to it. This is pretty cool when it's mixed with the bell line. I absolutely love this gecko to death. This is basically the origin of the dark line that I talked about. Remember when I showed you the snow that was a dark line snow? This is the origin here, which is basically just like a really dark reverse striped leopard gecko, but it happens to be what's producing all this crazy stuff. And it's not just like the dark snows. I mean, it's all kinds of crazy geckos are coming from this one animal right here. So not only do I think it's one of the coolest looking leopard geckos we have, certainly it is producing some of the craziest lines of leopard geckos. And I can't wait for the next 4 or 5 years as we're continuing to work deeper and deeper into what the heck this thing is all about. This one right here would be called an albino Murphy's patternless. Now the Murphy's patternless and the Tremper albino are both recessive, so these are a double recessive mutation. And it's actually a 1 in 16 odd of producing an albino Murphy's patternless to start. And when you only have 2 eggs, that means it takes a little longer if you have a reticulated python. And this guy is trying to attack my face. How funny is that? When you have a reticulated python that's laying 50, 60 eggs, it's pretty easy to produce a 1 in 16, but as geckos, it's a little bit difficult. And this guy's got a big old personality. I absolutely love him to death. And again, these guys actually turn almost solid yellow as they get older. The Murphy's patternless hatch out with a lot of color and pattern that's really cool. But as they get older, they basically become patternless, and that's why they're called Murphy's patternless. These ones right here are pretty interesting. This looks like just kind of almost like a hypo white and yellowish type of animal. I mean, it's really beautiful, but it's really kind of cool too. But this is the mystery here. This one, I've never seen a leopard gecko that has that color before. It's just kind of almost like a lavender color. And there's a lot of different colors in leopard geckos. They're so polymorphic, as I've been showing you guys. But this is something different. I mean, between the translucent look to it and all kinds of things, and you can tell these are siblings right here. Look how different they look. This is kind of a mystery to Jessica and I, so we're gonna raise these up and see if we can figure out what the heck is going on. So I saved what I think is one of our coolest geckos for last, and you know, listen, I could do this for hours. We have thousands of geckos, but there has to be an end to this vlog. So regardless, I'm gonna share this one here. This is actually a hypo Max Snow, white and yellow, het bell, eclipse, and also pied. I don't know, I've never seen a leopard gecko like this before. This thing is ridiculous, and when Jessica showed me it, once it got a little bit of size to it, I was like, oh my gosh, that is one of the coolest geckos I've ever seen. Again, I haven't ever seen one like this. I don't know if it's gonna be genetic, I don't know if it's a new line, I don't know, but that's one of the things that's nice when you're hatching several thousand geckos. You are gonna produce some kind of gems that kind of surprise you and shock you, and maybe even start some brand new lines. So it's pretty exciting. So I hope you guys like this animal and all the ones I showed you for that matter. Alright, so there it is. I'm going to end the gecko extravaganza vlog right now. You know, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that I like vlogs that are just so static and just kind of show, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to show off a bunch of cool stuff. So let me know in the comments how you like that. Again, this vlog isn't going to turn into that because it's really about my life. But part of my life, of course, is reptiles, and every now and then I like throwing out ones like this. So let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed it, thank you so much for tuning in today. You guys mean the world to me, and you are amazing, and I love you guys so much. Can you do me a couple favors, please? Can you smash that like button, as well as turn the post notifications on so you know when I upload a video, which is every day at 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, 7 days a week. Make sure to be kind to somebody today, and I promise I'm going to see you tomorrow.